Termancara overlooks Anna Head. It was here, according to a vivid newspaper report, that 3 local men waded into the raging sea with a rope to save a body from the jagged rocks. It was another of the guards, Private William Chick from Dorchester. The inquest was told that when the photo of a girl, perhaps sister or sweetheart, was found in his wallet, the onlookers were in tears. 19-year-old William rests forever in the cemetery at Kilcomaneris with 3 of his comrades from the Arandora Star. Black Rock lies 16 kilometres off the Erris coast. This is the story of Antonio Nardone. 25-year-old Antonio and his wife Antonella left Casino in 1908 to find work in England. They settled in Middlesbrough and started an ice cream business. Antonio out with a cart, Antonella running an ice cream parlour. By 1940, Tony Nardone was 59 and was a much-loved figure in what had become his hometown. The couple had 10 children, of whom Ernest is the only survivor. Now aged 80 and living in Middlesbrough, he told us what happened when he was 13 years old.
Soon after Italy declared war on Britain, the police arrived at our house one evening. We had no warning that all Italian citizens were being rounded up and interned, and the police took my dad away to Durham. We never saw him again.
The family saw a newspaper cutting which said Antonio's body had been picked up by fishermen off Black Rock and identified by a card in his pocket. We have searched for almost a year, but there is no trace of Antonio Nardone.
What of the 100 bodies seen off Inishkea Island, 12 miles south of Termancara? Only a few were recovered. Such was the ferocity of the storm. Private Darnell, one of the British Guards, was buried in this 700-year-old cemetery at Falmore, in sight of the place where he was found. The others rest somewhere in this cemetery. Their graves have no markers, and we'll never know who they were. We do know that the bodies were treated with reverence, and that the local people attended the funerals of all those who had met such terrible deaths. As in Donegal, these small communities made tremendous efforts to cope with a terrible disaster. As to the rest of the bodies, only 10 miles south of here are the forbidding cliffs of Achill Island, at over 2,000 feet, the highest sea cliffs in Europe. Nothing could survive the conflict between raging seas and rocky cliffs. For so many, the vast Atlantic is their grave. We have travelled 230 miles from Inishkea in the west to the little town of Ballycastle on the north coast. From this harbour the ferry goes to Rathlin, 12 kilometres to the north. On the horizon is Fairhead, beyond it the Mull of Kintyre in Scotland. The bodies of Giuseppe Capella and another Italian who was never identified were found on a rocky inlet at the west end of Rathlin Island. Today they rest in the churchyard of St. Thomas, on the shore of Church Bay in the distance. Beside the town of Ballycastle is Bonamargee Friary, founded by the Franciscans over 500 years ago. In the second week of August 1940, the bodies of 2 merchant seamen were recovered from the sea near here and were buried in this cemetery on August the 11th, the day before Giuseppe Capella was buried on Rathlin. It seems certain that these 2 unknown seamen were crew members from the Arandora Star. They might even be those of her officers, for Captain Edgar Moulton and his colleagues were seen to supervise the evacuation and go down with their ship. We're aboard the ferry leaving Ballycastle for Rathlin Island, which has long connections with Colonsay, the Scottish island where another victim, Giuseppe del Grosso, is buried. Both he and Giuseppe Capella came from Borgo Taro. Perhaps they knew each other. There's our favourite place, the 200-metre cliffs of Fairhead, which form the northeastern corner of Ireland. In the distance, the Mull of Kintyre, Scotland. These waters have long been a hunting ground for submarines. On this short voyage, we pass over at least 7 ships torpedoed in the 2 world wars. Ahead is the little settlement of Church Bay on Rathlin Island. After 45 minutes, the ferry enters the little harbour at Church Bay. We are climbing to the top of the island. This is Rathlin's eastern coastguard station. From here they watched the Arandora Star passing on that summer's evening in 1940. Rathlin is a bleak and windswept island with only 100 inhabitants. On the horizon is Torr Head on the west side of the Irish Sea. Coming into view is the Scottish coast. Between them is the North Channel between Ireland and Scotland. Through this channel came the Arandora Star. We have come down the hill to Church Bay, the only landing place on Rathlin. Across its peaceful waters are St Thomas's Church and the churchyard. A short walk round the shore, the last journey of Giuseppe Capella and his unknown countryman, brings us to our journey's end.
The churchyard has numerous war graves, mostly seamen from the 2 world wars. Behind the church, between the graves of a British airman and a British sailor, is the last resting place of Giuseppe Capella and his unknown companion. They are just 2 among the millions who died in the Great Conflict, and the Arandora Star is but one of 1,000 tragedies. Yet who could not be moved by their lonely deaths in the vast Atlantic? We remember all who died on the Arandora Star. They are far from home, but they are among friends.